Hi, Taylor. How are you?
Hello, I am good. How are you?
I'm great. Long time no see, right?
Yes,
We just got done a yoga class and you have agreed, and I'm so grateful that you did to come on here and talk a little bit about the Empath Empowerment Program, which you joined back in February. So it's been just a little more than 2 months. And
yes.
Empath Empowerment Program, for anyone listening who's not familiar, is my signature 6-month group coaching program. It's a hybrid between group coaching and individual coaching. And it's really about radically changing the way mental health care is delivered. So I wanted you to hear in Taylor's own words the benefits that she's been receiving since joining the program. And I'm just going to ask you some questions and you can tell us your experience so far.
I'd
Okay?
love to. Yes, I'm
Okay.
ready.
So, so just tell us a little about yourself and why you have been struggling with your mental health in recent years.
Absolutely. So I will be 35 next week, and I am a mom of two small girls, full-time, working mom. And we also operate a family ranch. So I have a lot on my plate. I have a 7-month-old and a 3-year-old, excuse me, and had started back to work in January. And I had a very my recent birth was very traumatic, and I was really struggling, and I had been procrastinating putting off therapy and finding a therapist. It was just really daunting to me, and I had you know felt I was feeling very stuck. And really, since my first daughter was born, I've suffered really deeply with postpartum depression. And then I went through that traumatic birth, and it was just piling up. I went back to work, trying to keep my house running, our ranch running, my work going, not miss out on time with my girls, with my husband, you know, there was no time for myself. Um, and just kind of felt like I was really spiraling and being crushed by all of it. And I was really resentful, for how I was feeling. And, uh, I didn't like how I was feeling about my life. And these are things that I have prayed for a long, long time, to have this family and to be on our ranch. And I found myself very bitter, about a lot of those things. And so, it's just really added up a lot over these last 3 years. And I was feeling very lost.
Yeah. And, and why we connected, I think, so deeply upon first meeting, which at first happened in the context of a mediumship reading, was that, I'm about 12 years older than Taylor and went through a very, very similar experience with motherhood kind of breaking the camel's back in regards to my mental health and my second birth being a traumatic one. So it was a really good fit in many ways. And yeah, and I enjoy working with you as much as you enjoy working with me. So it's been a really
Yes.
match made in heaven, honestly. So
It's still kind of crazy to me how we, just through the mediumship. So, a friend of a friend connecting us on that. But then even in that mediumship, I came into it kind of with a specific question that I wanted answered. And I wanted to know if my grandparents that are gone, see my children. And it's just something that I think about them all the time. And the answer I actually got is they not only see my children, but they see and love me. And it was such a cool experience. And really now, um, I know that it wasn't me thinking of them, it was them thinking of me and sending me, those hugs and love and all of those things when they, come to mind. And uh, as you say, I'm receiving their love. I'm not thinking, about them. And that's been a really cool experience. And even in that, the motherhood thing stood out, immediately. And just, I felt like finally seen. when after even just talking after a mediumship.
Oh, that's yeah, it really touches me when you say that. And I think speaks to where your mental health was at that moment, before you committed to this program and just that, the idea that the grandparents that you loved so deeply when they were here on earth would somehow be skipping a generation with their love and only now focusing on your children. That's not how this works,
Yeah.
right? I'm glad that I was able to shine your awareness on the fact that, I mean, they never stop loving you, and in fact they're and being present with you, and in fact they're more present with you than they ever could have been physically. So, and that's
Yeah.
the magic of our sessions is we can combine the therapy aspects with the mediumship aspects and, really bring the exact messages that you need to hear. So with what was the you did answer this to some extent, but just give us an idea of what life was like before you joined the Empath Empowerment Program and what made you decide to join, Taylor.
Yeah. I mean, things were dark. I could compartmentalize, I could still go to work and I could get my work done. But if I paused or slowed down for a second, I mean, my mind was just crushed by like darkness and suicidal thoughts and deep, deep feelings of what a horrible mother I was and what a failure I was. And there were so many times that, I mean, just I was just always right on the brink, and like any small thing would just tip me over. And there have been times where I literally couldn't drive myself. Um, my husband had to stop working cows one time and come and get me because I was so hysterical and upset. And all I had done was just gone over, like I'd gone to a family member's house and I think we were trying to like figure out lunch or something. I mean, like just an incredibly uh, basic thing, basic things in my life I couldn't cope with. And uh, that takes obviously a tremendous toll on myself, but of course, it's impacting my husband, and my kids are little enough that hopefully, that it's not a lasting impact on them. And but certainly, it was having a great impact on how I showed up for them, and I didn't like it. And quite honestly, was scared a lot of times. Like those suicidal thoughts are very scary. And, you know, logically I don't want to leave this earth. I didn't want to act upon those things, but those thoughts sitting with you that frequently and that heavy is really difficult to cope with every day.
It's terrifying. And, I was there in 2017. And frankly, I was there even more recently than that. And I'm going to talk about that more openly, in the upcoming weeks. But until you've been there, you don't really understand the crushing weight of that feeling and those thoughts and how they take over. And I know now that the universe, will, I like to say, give us a shove, a nudge, and then a shove, and then a 2x4 to the face, right? And when you are in such a state where you can no longer function, you can no longer ignore those suicidal thoughts, and you can no longer do the things that you used to do with a smile on your face, and it becomes obvious to everyone around you that you need help, that's actually a blessing because now you're finally going to ask for help because part of the reason you got here is trying to keep all of those very heavy plates in the air or those balls,
Yeah,
juggling those balls without the proper help and support, right? So there's a lot of options for mental health practitioners out there, and many of them, unlike myself, are covered by insurance. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with us what made you decide to work with me.
absolutely. So I actually have seen therapists in the past, and I saw one after my first daughter was born to really help me with my postpartum depression at that time. And it was beneficial, and uh, it did help me to some extent, but it very quickly plateaued. And I felt like we never really addressed the root cause or made any progress on like how to get rid of this, like how to really truly move all the way past it and or through it is really what it is. You can't move past it. You have to move through it. And uh, I learned, she was able to, I guess, point out some obvious things, but I was just never really given like something that I felt like was a recipe for success or change. And, um, it is also, it's daunting to find just anyone to help you in general that you connect with or that like feels like the right fit. So, I wasn't actually even searching you out, right, per se. I had been very much procrastinating uh, finding a therapist because the burden of like doing that seemed, it's just like I can't take that on top of everything else. I can barely function. And now I'm supposed to like find some sort of time to figure out a right therapist that I'm not even sure is going to help. So in my mind at that time, like that was just nope, I have to put that over here. And um once we had that mediumship reading and you and I talked multiple times, it just clicked. I mean, I could tell that it was going to be different. Um, that you really were going to give me the tools to move, as I mentioned before, all the way through it and not just be this state that I have to live in for the rest of my life and
Yeah.
cope and mask this stuff and like shove it down. Like we were going to dig it up. and
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean it was scary to even leap into that, right? And I really had to like I didn't have a lot of faith in myself and I found just enough to say yes, and I'm glad that I did.
Oh my gosh. And it should be said that part of, I think, what helped you enthusiastically say yes was because we also do have, I think you'll agree, one of the best certified trauma therapists that exists,
Yeah.
Dr. Janae Akbar. So I know you've had some powerful sessions with her as well. So in this,
Yes.
you do get the access to a certified trauma therapist, which, like Taylor said, is incredibly helpful, but does have its limits, and what I bring to the table is not just that knowledge about complex PTSD specifically, which you, like many people that come into this container, that was new to you, that knowledge and that understanding that your childhood traumas were contributing to this really hellish mental health landscape that you were experiencing, but the understanding that it's a temporary state as long as you can really shift your perspective on why you think the thoughts that you think, why you have the beliefs that you have. Are those beliefs even true? How do we move past the things that have already happened to us, right? So, oh, it's just exciting. It's so exciting to know that it's helped you this much. So speaking of that, tell me, this feels so, self-important, but it's going anyway. Tell us your favorite thing about working together. Has anything blown your mind, and why has it been such a game changer?
So I think why this has been so great for me is like the relatability and the feeling seen. This is one of the first times in my life or in a very long time that, I've really felt understood and like I'm not crazy. And and you use your own life stories and personal experiences to give other examples, of the things I'm feeling or dealing with, even though it's a totally different story, right? That it's still very applicable. And just it's just such a safe space. And um, oh my gosh, there's no judgment, which I don't know if I've ever been around any people in my life that have zero judgment. I mean, that is a very incredibly challenging thing, as humans to space to operate in of, zero judgment. And that's been really impactful to me. And again, just like I'm not alone and I'm not crazy. And the consistency of the message is also we talk about this and even just repeating the same thing, or we make some progress and we kind of go back and to the beginning and go through it almost again, because now it's like now I have a little bit more context and I understand it even more. And so that's been really uh it might be simple, but it's also been a big game changer for me, and like how this whole process has gone compared to historical other experiences like this.
Yeah. Oh, and simple does not mean easy.
No,
Right? Because in no way do I want to minimize the work it's taken me to get this, gain this wisdom, and the work that Taylor specifically has done to not just soak in the wisdom, but really apply it and, make that forward progress and make her investment worth it. Right? Because she's got skin in the game here. And it's and you're such a pleasure to coach because you're so incredibly smart. And I'm just going to say that anybody who is really attracted to work with me is going to be a little bit smarter than the average bear, because you get it in a way that is just, you really take the concepts and you apply them to your real life. And that's what really helps us move the needle, because words don't teach us, experiences teach us. Right. And that's why I'm so effective as a coach, is because I've had so much experience with getting that 2x4 to the face by the universe of ways in which my lack of self-love and boundaries and allowing my mind and past traumas to really take over. And I'm certainly someone who's experienced suicidal thinking, and to really combat that with, as you said before, it's not a life sentence. This is not something I have to live with for the rest of my life. This is something that I can understand in such a way that I completely change my experience of the life that I'm living, and the things even that I've been through in the past, seeing them in a new light. Right.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think too, the big difference has been some of the things, some of the words that you've said over the last, 2, 3 months have been things that I've heard from others,
Mm.
but they didn't really mean anything until, and you've been able to give the experience behind it to then make it relatable and something that I can actually do on my own every day. Um, and I, this is one we've talked about a lot, but I love this is at the very beginning, we were talking about, right, my mind was obviously completely bombarding me with all of these negative thoughts. And you didn't just say, stop thinking those things, because you knew that that's impossible for someone like me in this state. And instead, you gave me the tools to learn how to replace those thoughts with my heart and my intuition instead of just, well, stop doing that. If I could, I would. And I would venture to guess that a lot of people that you talk with probably feel the same way. Like if I could stop doing this negative thing, I would do so, but I don't know what else to do instead. And now I feel like I really have those skills, and that's what I've been missing is what to do instead, and been very impactful.
Yeah, and I think one of the nicest things you said early on was that you really liked that I wasn't telling you what to do. I was showing you, ways in which it might work for you, and then giving you complete free reign to figure it out for your own life. So
Yeah.
it, there's a lot of freedom in this container. And I'm so thrilled, just to go back to what you said before about it being a judgment-free zone, and that's so new and refreshing. And any yoga based community or mindfulness based community, hopefully that's an aspect of it, but we all know there's bad apples in every bunch, right? So yeah, that's something that anybody who comes into my world, it's not just a judgment free zone, but you're really held with such compassion, because everything that you've been through, and and I know for everyone listening, we've all been through some really dark times. It's shaped you into who you are today, and we can move forward from there. We don't have to dwell on the past. In fact, that's doing you no good except keeping you in the realm of suffering. And you don't deserve to suffer. You deserve to thrive. right?
Yeah.
All right. What results, big and small, have you gotten from working together, Taylor?
Uh, Gosh. Uh, I would say that the big one is I I've been able, to step into my own intuitive power, which is much different than trying to control everything, which is, a state I have been in and still working on. Still room for improvement, but that has given me a lot of freedom, and I feel, empowered instead of crushed, um, more times than not, right? And my daily life is not consumed by these negative thoughts and by these things that are very much untrue, right? At the end of the day, I'm not a bad mother. Um, the world isn't a better place without me. And those things are less than 5%, if maybe less than 1% now. And they were 90% of my thoughts, when we met.
Wow.
And, like I said, I mean, to the point where, right, like I couldn't spend 2 minutes in the quiet, right? Or else I would be suicidal. And it's exhausting. And so just the peace I feel, I notice, I'm enjoying like the moments I do have with my children so much more. Um, and instead of panicking and trying to control all of these things, I can be a lot more at peace a lot more of the time.
Oh, it brought tears to my eyes. Just, the idea that the person that I met 2.5 months ago and have had the pleasure of knowing and coaching and will befriend for the rest of my life, thought that you were not only a bad mother, which is ridiculous in its own right, but that the world was better off without you is just heartbreaking. And I thank you so much for your vulnerability, for saying the quiet part out loud. Because I was in the same place in 2017. And as I said, even more recently with things that I've been through. And, it is a temporary solution, a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And you are, regardless of whether you're a mother, being a mother is not what makes us worthy of being here. Being here makes us worthy of being here. You are a child of God or the universe or source energy or whatever word that you want to put upon it. And even if you are an atheist, just know that you're worthy and that your life has purpose. And yeah, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you didn't let those dark thoughts take over, and I'm so glad that you followed your intuition to this container,
I am
and
too.
yeah, and when the
Yeah. I mean, to answer like, results big is for big results is that like I'm still here. And, to be quite honest, I mean, there's I can't imagine there's just a breaking point. If that's the percentage of your thoughts that much of the time, you can't fight that off
yeah.
forever. And so I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be with my girls and my family. And yeah.
Oh, you really are. All right. Well, I think I'll just ask the question,
Yeah.
how has your life changed with such amazing results here?
Yeah. I mentioned some of it, but also just in my relationship with my husband, been able to really communicate a lot differently. And, we still have room to improve, but I'm excited for where that's going to lead us in our relationship, me showing up so much differently. Um, when I show up vulnerably, it changes how he shows up, and that's had a big impact on our relationship and really opened up the doors for a lot of communication and sharing about things that that we were not sharing, right? And fighting about surface level things, about dishes or whatever. Some, right? Couples are fighting about the dishes being whatever the thing is, right? But really, um, we've gotten to have some really deep conversations about our life and the direction we want to go and our own alignment. And it's been really impactful, um, in my relationships, and same with my children. I think we're all having a lot more fun, obviously, when I'm no longer in such a dark place on such a consistent basis. You show up differently. Everyone around you is going to show up differently too. And I'm just so, uh, grateful that I found this now, and um, can so quickly change, how I show up with my family.
Mm. And sleep was another thing that you had mentioned to me. That was a big,
Yes. Yeah. Well, we just finished a yoga session, for example, and 2 months ago, if you would, like, I actually was able to meditate for 5 whole minutes. Like, my mind was at peace for 5 whole minutes. Like, that's incredible to me. Um, and I felt good in that peace. And the same has happened, with my sleep. If I wake up, I don't just deep spiral into all the terrible things that I used to. I go back to sleep when I wake up, and that's really cool.
yes. Oh, that's huge in and of itself. All right. Think back to when you joined just a little over 2 months ago. What do you think your life would be like today if you continued doing what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary to say this out loud, but I don't know what my life would have been, right? I mean, it was already in a very scary place. Um, and at some point I would have become not functional. The coping was barely working 2 months ago. So it's something I almost even don't even want to think about, because I think it would have been very dark.
Yeah. If someone asked you about joining the Empath Empowerment Program, Taylor, what would you tell them?
Do it. Please do it. For, if you have to, if you can't do it for yourself, you know, do it for your kids or your spouse or your significant other or a family member, if that means, more to you. And that was the case for me. I really at the time had a hard time doing it for myself, but I felt like my girls gave me, I was doing it for them. And very quickly I've been able to put that energy back into myself. I very quickly learned how impactful that is. But point being is, even if you feel like you're not worthy right now, you are, and it's going to give you the strength you need to see that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that, and certainly we accept anybody who's in the dark place, and anyone who wants to avoid the dark place, because I certainly don't want to give the impression that you can only do this work when you're in crisis. The sooner you catch yourself in this spiral, the better. But if you are a mother, and as Taylor said, you don't feel worthy of doing it for yourself, just know that whatever is best for you is inherently best for your children. Your children are looking to you in every moment as that role model of how you care for yourself, and the relationship that you do have with your spouse. Kids are incredibly intuitive. We're not fooling them when it comes to energy, even if we're having those surface level tensions about the dishes, as you said, when really, air quote dishes,
Yeah.
when really it's about, years of emotional neglect or whatever is behind it, right? So yeah, it is an incredibly important investment. And I will say, I mean, probably not as expensive as you think. We're gonna have to get on a call to talk about the actual price, but well worth the investment in yourself, especially when you think about what a lifetime worth of therapy might cost you in insurance copays, to really be empowered with the tools, as Taylor said, to identify the triggers, work through the triggers, really doing the work to come into that present moment awareness. And then, we're still in the stages of this process together, right? We have
Yeah.
together and we're not even halfway there. So we're getting to the stages where things start to get even more fun when it comes to energetic alignment and all that unfolds with that. So I'm going to let you go after this last question. What are you most excited to accomplish or to be able to do by the end of this program together?
Oh, I just, I'm doing it a little bit more, but just to laugh and again and enjoy, you know, it's crazy to say, but I think it's possible to enjoy hard, tough things in life. And, I wasn't even enjoying the good things. We've made a lot of progress, and at least I can pretty well enjoy most good things. But to even, enjoy the stuff that's hard and not be resentful and understand those feelings and also teach that to my children. Obviously the theme, right, of our interview is, as you tell, is very, very centered around my children. That's the stage of life, that I'm in. Um, and it's so important to me that I not only do these things to improve my own well-being, but that I pass these skills on to my children. And, I want our family to have fun again. And,
And I think that
we're there.
it's such a sign of healing is when you can laugh, right? Because we can't change the things that have happened to us, but we can change our perspective on the things that have happened to us. And if we can really feel joy and feel laughter, well, then those things, those people, those experiences, they didn't break you, right? They made you who you are, and we can be grateful for them, right? And yeah. Oh, you were such a pleasure to know. You're such a pleasure to
Thank you,
coach. I
Kat.
can't thank you enough for being here in the Empath Empowerment Program, but even more importantly, for being here on Earth and investing in yourself for the sake not just of your girls, but yourself as well. So thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for all of the things you have taught me and all the work we're going to do.
Yes, I'm so excited. I love working together. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
Thank
Taylor.
you, Kat.
Bye bye.